So, good
Yeah,
morning to all. I know this is the middle of the week, Wednesday, and we're usually doing our podcast on Friday and Monday. But this is a special event because I'm going to be talking to a fellow Tyronian, a man that had the wisdom to live and be born, I guess, west of the Ban. And his name is Danny Boyle. How are you this morning, Danny?
the very best, Jude. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Pleasure. You've been a Tyrone man all your life then, have you?
Pretty much. Born in Oma
Aye,
in 1994. Grew up in Castleberg. Moved to Staban in 2020.
aye.
Was living in Staban for a few years, couple of years, 2, 3 years. And I've sort of been up in Castleberg most of the time in
Aye.
recent months, the
Yeah, the
past
important
year.
thing is the important thing is to live in Tyrone. As long as you don't
Pretty
move
much.
out of Tyrone, that's the thing. Anyway, let's get down to business here, Danny. Well, there's just a couple of topics we want to talk about this morning. And the political one is the most obvious one. Are you up to speed with exactly what they're up to? I understand they're having a session in the assembly this morning at 12 o'clock. Have I got that right?
I think you're right enough, Jude.
Yeah. And what the object of that is what? Is Chris Heaton Harris going to be there, or are they going to be trying to put pressure? And is the DUP going to turn up?
Well, my interpretation of it, Jude, would be that this is an assembly that I believe should have. Now, I'm not saying it's definitely going to be up and running, but it should have been up and running long ago, um, because I believe that the rest of the parties, there's no reason why the rest of the MLAs couldn't go into that assembly without the DUP. I mean, if they want to boycott, that's entirely up to them. They're well entitled to do that if they choose.
Yeah.
So, given they've had that stance now for a significant enough period of time, you'd have to say, I know there's talk about legislation, guff like that. There's no reason why the legislation can't at least be contested and therefore later changed.
Hmm. I think
Because
I think I think I think they are the DUP saying. I mean, the Good Friday Agreement we know has joined both the DUP and Sinn Féin at hip and knee. So one can't do anything without the other. Is that not the case?
I've heard that argument as well too, but how many times now has a Good Friday Agreement been contradicted? Like, do you know what I mean? Um, you know, like I was going to say, I mean, you know, legislation, can be changed. We've seen law and order changed. So with that in mind, I don't see why the legislation can at least be contested and then therefore, like I say, changed.
Right, right. Why do you think, even in the face of any number of our services suffering terribly, particularly health, if somebody's got, say, a really serious disease like cancer, they can't get an appointment. The DUP knows this, and yet it stays out. And the DUP's supporters know this, and yet they encourage them to stay out. Can you explain that to me? The ordinary people will allow their health, for example, to be in jeopardy for the sake of supporting the DUP.
Well, sadly, Jude, your average person on the street, they're going to put their agenda before anything else. Simple
Uh,
as.
that seems insane. I mean, can you imagine yourself in a family where, say, the father has to have an operation, an important operation, maybe a heart operation, a stent been put in or something like that, and that's going to be delayed. His life is going to be deteriorating at least until we have an assembly.
Strangers don't care enough about strangers, Jude.
Yeah, but if there's somebody in your own family, I mean, surely
No,
you put your political notions aside and get them fixed.
no, you'd think that. I think that should be the instinctive thought, a reaction,
Mhm.
but it's all
So,
about the modern world, isn't it?
yeah, how do you see this working out, Danny? Do you see the DUP eventually? Because I heard Jeffrey Donaldson making noises, suggesting that things were getting a bit of progress here. Will they eventually go back into Stormont and waive the 3.3 billion that they've got, or what?
Well, I'm wondering why they're asking that question, Jude. Is there a way that they could be forced into going back on the Stormont? I know there's talk that if they don't and it's not up and run by, was it Friday,
Yeah.
then there's a possibility there could be direct rule. Now that'd be a tricky one, direct rule, if
Hmm.
that's the case. Because on one hand, I think if the Tories had a referendum among themselves, I actually believe most of them would vote for United Ireland because they want nothing to do with Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, they're having to, play to the DUP gallery and the Unionist gallery in the north, and obviously the Loyalist gallery as well.
It can't go on. It simply can't go on, can it?
Been going on long enough, Jude. How many times did that before?
Yeah. I have a here's a, I'll put a scenario to you, and you tell me if I've got if it has any credibility. As things stand, it seems likely that Jeffrey Donaldson's going to hither and dither, probably not because he himself doesn't want to go back in, but because there's a right-wing rump there of people like Sammy Wilson and Gregory Campbell and people like that, who would be very hardline about the idea of the North becoming semi-detached from the rest of the UK. So this is a scenario. I see Jeffrey being afraid to take a decision to go back in, this drifting on until sometime this year when the British government calls a general election. There'll be, I suspect, gains made by Sinn Féin in terms of Westminster if there is an election. This year, almost certainly there'll be an election in the south, and except there's a radical change, Sinn Féin should be the biggest party there. It might well be that Sinn Féin, as a leading sort of Republican party or pro-United Ireland party, they're going to simply ignore, for the present, the Assembly and bypass it and call a citizens' assembly or take the steps towards having a cross-border referendum. And, Stormont then will be an irrelevance, or it might play some part in a new Ireland. Do you think, is that possible? Because Stormont has been for so long and so often a point of contention that has sort of hamstrung everybody.
Yeah, I mean, there is a good possibility of that, given Sinn Féin, obviously, it goes without saying they're the biggest party in the north just now. And obviously with Sinn Féin growing in the south as well, that would give them more legs, more credibility, more fuel in the tank.
And you think that's possible?
Yeah, I think it's very possible.
And is it more likely than in your opinion? Do you think it's more likely than that Jeffrey and company might go back into Stormont, waiving the 3.3 million or billion?
I would say in the balance of probability, if you had to push me, Jude, I would say they will eventually go back on the DUP, Donaldson.
Bigger? Yeah. It'll be interesting because if he does, that will be the facing down of the
51-49.
He'll be facing down the hard men of his party, which will be, people are comparing him to Trimble, and they're saying this is what happened to Trimble. Trimble, agreed to the Good Friday Agreement, and as a result, the Ulster Unionist Party was doomed. And they're saying if Johnson does the same thing, that the DUP will eventually be replaced by something else. I don't think I agree with that. Would you see it that way? Do you think he'll be seen as a weak man, or would you say he'll be seen as a man who's got a common sense?
Well, the thing that I'm just thinking now that he could say would be that, he could use the argument that, everything evolves. And albeit without this, boycotting stance for a significant enough period of time, then ultimately things do evolve and things, progress or, change to whatever, you know what I mean? So maybe he'll take the positive and the negative.
Well, we can hope so. They say,
Yeah.
I mean, I never had any dealings with him, but people who have say that Donaldson as a person is a nice guy and that he's, very polite and sort of measured, unlike a number of people in the we all can think of in the DUP. Um, so, well, it'll be interesting, as they say, may you live in interesting times. A final question on this, and then we'll move to a sporting area, which I know is close to your heart. Do you see a border poll within this decade? Because that's what Mary Lou McDonald said. That is
This
to say
decade.
by 2030.
Well, I was thinking maybe 15 years, but now that you've asked me this decade, I would say it's 70-30.
That there will be. Yeah. That's not the year. You're not saying we'll have to wait to 70-30. Oh, yeah, of course, for a referendum. Yeah. It seems to me if they initiate the process, things could really speed up then. I think they need a citizens' assembly first or something to map out what a united Ireland would really look like, not to make the Brexit mistake that they made where they voted for something they didn't know what the hell it was. So they need to do that, and that would probably take the guts of a year anyway. And then they'll have to consult parties, and only then. So you need, I think, at least a 2 or 3 year run up to the thing. Otherwise, you're asking for disaster, encouraging people to vote, mindlessly. But let's hope so. Let's hope so. I'm not getting any younger, Danny. I don't like the sound of 15, 20 years, much less 70-30. Okay, let's go to the second item. You picked out this young guy, Bradley. I thought that was very interesting. Tell us more about this Conor Bradley.
So Conor Bradley is a Derg man. I think he's 20 years of age now. I know whenever he was
When
in
you
Bolton
sorry, Danny. When you say a Derg man, I might know what you're talking about, but a lot of other people won't.
Castle Derg.
In County
So
Tyrone, yeah,
I so he started off his youth football at St. Pat's local soccer team in Castle Derg.
yeah.
While he was playing Gaelic football for Ahern, where some of your people are from. I
That's
mean,
right. Yeah,
and Dungannon Swifts took him on then for a while, maybe I think it was 2 or 3 years roughly. Um, and eventually Liverpool set their sights on him,
oh,
signed, and he has been through the youth academy as well, and he got a big contract, under the senior side of things. I think it was in 2021, and yeah, he's just been on leaps and bounds ever since. He went out for a season on loan to Bolton last season, got their player of the year at the age of 19. And as we've seen this season, he's had more, he's getting more and more senior appearances for Liverpool as a team that he grew up supporting. Um, and you take I think it was last 5 or 10 months, they came on the cup game against Arsenal at the Emirates.
yeah,
Certainly done this. Played the full 90 minutes, and the League Cup at home to Fulham. Yeah, big praise for him again.
mhm,
So no, it's absolutely fantastic. There's a lot of hype about him, understandably so,
yeah,
Jude.
yeah.
But I don't know the fella personally.
Hmm.
But I've spoken to people who do know him and know his family. Uh, I know, I know some of the Muller side of the family.
Yeah,
Um, they would have played Gaelic football for Ahern as well.
yeah.
The footballing wise, they've a good pedigree.
Hmm.
Uh,
So how
two
long
young.
has he been in the academy for Liverpool? How long has he been over with them?
Like I, as I say, Jude, he signed for the Liverpool Academy in 2021.
Oh, really?
Or
That recently? So are you saying, Danny, are you saying he's developed his skills prior to going to Liverpool?
yeah, yeah. I mean, Dungannon Swifts took him on before he signed for Liverpool, and yeah, he's just came on leaps and bounds. Um, I think it was no. I'll tell you what it was, Jude. It was 2019. He signed for Liverpool. Um, and yeah, he's getting, he's just coming on leaps and bounds, like, and it's absolutely
He plays, what position does he play?
right back, right
Right
wing
back,
back.
yeah, yeah. I noticed him immediately. He seemed, as you say, he seemed very much at ease. You normally expect somebody coming in like that to be nervous or to make silly mistake at least once or twice. He seemed sure-footed the whole way the time he was on.
Still keep the ball.
That's a good. I didn't know that he was from Castleberg and that he had a Nahiyard link. What do you think of this idea of? And you said he supported Liverpool. What do you think of this idea in general? Leave aside the question of using your talents as he's doing, of people support here in Ireland, the north of Ireland, supporting teams in England. Is there something a bit colonial about that?
I think what needs to be taken into consideration is that a lot of Irish immigrated to England, particularly Liverpool, particularly Manchester. I mean, you could name off a few cities, London, Birmingham, so I can understand why a lot of Irish would have particular interest in English football from immigration. But obviously, as we speak now, Jude, the brand of English football has grown significantly since the days of significant immigration. Um, it's a worldwide global league. You could say now the English Premiership, English Premier League, whatever they want to brand themselves with, in terms of the title. But I mean, obviously back here, in Ireland, like, it's what Liverpool, Man United, Celtic, mainly.
Yeah. These are the teams that are supported. I must say, I watch football very much on TV all the time. And while I don't know if this is a problem for you, it is for some people. You have teams like Man City and Arsenal that are, I think Arsenal, that are funded by Middle Eastern potentates, where civil rights and so on, or human rights are fairly regularly ignored. And
Newcastle, Man City, Newcastle.
yeah, Newcastle. That's the team I was thinking of. I find I can detach the two things. I wish they would be, but better their own people. But at the same time, I have to admire the football we're seeing played as a result of the funding. Would that be your line on it?
Well, I'm a big believer, Jude, that you get what you pay for in life. And by hook or by crook, that's the way it is, I believe.
Yeah. What about? Sorry, go ahead. Were you going to say something there?
No, I was just going to finish off by saying it's not pretty, but
well, of course, this is the old thing. You see, I mean, if you look at who's funding any team, like you have to be somebody who's very powerful, a billionaire probably, or a couple of billionaires at least, or a state in the Middle East that's got unlimited funds. But if you take say a team that's funded by a billionaire, maybe Man United or something, if you were to look into their dealings, you'd probably find there was all sorts of immoral actions happening. That maybe their workers aren't getting a decent deal. All sorts of trickery could be going on there too. So I think it's a wee bit simplistic maybe to say this team's supported by a state in the Middle East, so therefore that's bad, no human rights. This team's supported by billionaires. Oh, that's grand. That's grand. They're billionaires, so they must be fair enough,
I think anyone who would think for a split second, not to mention a second, that in elite business there's no significant play of the dark arts would be naive, to say the least.
Yeah. Somebody said behind each successful man there's at least one major crime.
Aye. It's a bad world.
Yeah. A final point then, Danny. Has anybody approached either the South or the North, the Republic of Ireland or Northern Ireland? Have they approached Conor in terms of playing for them?
Yeah, he's currently a Northern Ireland international. I believe there was an approach from the Republic of Ireland, but obviously he felt more comfortable for whatever reason. They continue his international football for Northern Ireland, and that's what it is.
Well, that's his choice. That's his choice. I think that's a terrible shame, and I think it's the team I'd kind of follow would be the Republic of Ireland, and I think I would find it difficult to support Northern Ireland because of its history. Really, there is a history of sectarianism behind that, and I must say, if you ask me, the one player from the north that I admire most is James McLean. There was a guy who decided he wanted to play for the South, and he did it in the face of a lot of protests, as I remember it. And there was a guy that says, "Look, I don't want to wear this poppy," and he was able to stick to his guns, if that's the word I want, which struck me as extraordinarily brave, really, because there was a mass outcry by many of opposing supporters. It was a stick that they tried to beat him with, So fair play to him. But anyway, good luck to Conor. Has he played for Northern Ireland then? Has he played for
I,
him?
I think he is 3 to 6 caps around that.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, yeah.
Around
Well, I hope
one
we
of the
see more of him. Are there any other um, sporting topics you'd like to cover or talk about briefly, Danny?
nothing springs to mind.
Yeah, you're obsessed simply with with Conor Bradley and his fortune. Well, anyway, a good Iron man.
Yeah,
How in
well,
God's name could he not be
not
successful? Huh?
not as obsessed with football as I used to be, Jude. I don't like.
Really?
Well, I don't like the modernization of football, the politics and all that.
Mm.
Modern player. Don't like all that.
Yeah. What exactly are you getting at there, I wonder?
Lack of loyalty. The fact that the UK government tends to dip their fingers in the footballing issues. I don't particularly agree with that, and like I say, I
Mm.
don't particularly.
Well,
But maybe
I've heard people talk about a lack of loyalty when a player leaves a club and plays for another club because he's got a new contract. Uh, I don't see that as loyalty at all, really. I think
no,
your loyalty is to your employer.
what new contracts mean in the modern game, Jude, would be that if you sign a new contract, say hypothetically 5 years, and in the next transfer window, a bigger club comes in, that means that the club that you're currently playing for would get, far more money for that player than say if that if that player had like 6 months left in his contract in
Yeah.
comparison to say 5 years.
So what's the point? I mean, that's fair enough, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just the way it is. Like, I mean, there's no such thing as like honoring your contract. You
Mhm.
don't have to contract.
And your club has to see the thing is the club you're playing for has to agree to it if you actually are sold to another team or if your contract is ended after halfway because you want to get away to another team. Your club's got to agree to that and be paid for it.
Well, there can be a straightforward enough agreement between the two respective clubs, or we've seen in plenty other issues or incidences where a player's actually gone on strike, refused to turn up for training.
Yeah, yeah, putting pressure on. Yeah, interesting. It's an interesting thing. I must say that one of the reasons I really like top quality football in the Premier League is I think it becomes very close to art. It's. I mean, it's an exquisitely beautiful thing. Like that Newcastle Man City game that was on the other day, last week, I think. All of the goals in that were absolutely superb. It just gives you a glimpse of what people are capable of achieving. It's like a sculptor or a painter or a musician or something. Just wonderful to see. And it's also wonderful to see how happy people are when they win. And sometimes it's very good to see people being miserable when they lose. Anyway, it's good talking to you, Danny. And maybe we'll do this again.
Ah,
So we'll keep in touch. And thank you so much. That's Danny Boyle. Bye, Danny.
thanks. God bless.